Welcome to the Blue Earth County Consumer-Directed Community Supports Orientation. This training is available if you are not able to attend the face-to-face CDCS orientation given once a month at Blue Earth County. You can stop the video at any time and resume by forwarding to where you left off. I would suggest you take notes or write down any questions you may have for your case manager. Let's get started. The following topics will be covered during this training: history and waiver origins, consumer-directed community supports, otherwise known as CDCS, roles of case manager, fiscal management services, and support planners, support planning and CDCS plans, expenditure areas, participant responsibilities, and what CDCS is unable to pay for. What is a waiver? Waivers were created to assist people in moving out of restricted residential settings into less restrictive integrated community settings. The term waiver comes from the actions federal and state legislation took to waive some of the rules that were regulated heavily in other settings like state hospitals or group homes. Group homes are now referred to as corporate foster homes. Typically, those settings require intense regulation of things like temperature of hot water, scripted menu plans, and other rules put in place to protect the health and safety of the persons living there. CDCS is a flexible service option offered through the Blue Earth County Social Services and Public Health. It is one of a menu of services available in the different waiver programs. Waiver programs include the Community Alternative Care Waiver, known as CAC, the Community Access for Disability Inclusion Waiver, known as CADI, Brain Injury Waiver, known as BI, Developmental Disability Waiver, known as DD, and waivers for persons over 65 years of age. Those waivers for people over 65 years of age include the elderly waiver and the alternative care waiver. This training is about teaching you the parameters and guidelines that are federally mandated. This training will also teach you about state and county policy and guidelines as well. Clients receive an individual budget amount that they can direct within parameters and guidelines. CDCS allows the client to develop and direct individualized supports using informal, formal, and generic services. Eligibility for waiver programs is determined by the MinChoices assessment. Each waiver requires a client to meet the level of care eligibility designated for that waiver. The developmental disability waiver is for persons who meet the DD level of care. This includes the level of care for intermediate care facilities and/or related conditions. The Community Access for Disability Inclusion, or CADI waiver, is for persons who meet eligibility for nursing home level of care. The Community Alternative Care waiver, or CAC waiver, is for persons who meet hospital level of care. The Brain Injury BI waiver is for persons who meet nursing home level of care or neurobehavioral level of care. The elderly waiver and the alternative care waiver are for persons coming onto the waiver who are over the age of 65. The elderly waiver is for people who meet nursing home level of care and are on medical assistance. The alternative care waiver is for people who meet nursing home level of care but are not on medical assistance. Blue Earth County developed a CDCS review team in November of 2019. This team helps to ensure consistency in meeting individual needs and to make sure we are consistently following federal and state guidelines. Once plans are approved, your case manager will authorize services. Once a MinChoice's initial or reassessment is completed, the assessment results will be downloaded to a state electronic system. The amounts of the budget are set by the state for that year. Reassessments are set annually. When you choose to use the CDCS program, that is your budget for the year. If you run out of budget funds halfway through the year, you will go without funding for the rest of the year, and case management will be the only service you will receive. Please work with your FMS to stay on top of your monthly expenditures. Overspending happens rarely, but it has been known to happen when the responsible party does not keep track of the information sent to them by their FMS. It is also important to remember that you should never purchase an item that hasn't been approved by the lead agency. The MinChoices assessment is a conversation between you and the assessor. The assessment includes many questions, which must be answered honestly and with accuracy. The answers to your questions determine what services, if any, you are eligible for. Since reassessments occur annually, your answers must reflect what is happening in present time. If there is a change in any of the categories on your long-term care assessment, DD full team screening, or your MinChoices reassessment, it may change the maximum resource allocation either way, up or down, dependent upon the changes that occurred. It is not unusual for budgets to change. Please do not be surprised if your budget does change, especially for children. Children learn new skills and budgets change. Persons with significant medical conditions can and do improve and get better. Budgets are not stagnant. They can change, and they do change. This is really just a reminder that if you choose to appeal, you are not appealing the budget. You are appealing the assessment. Answers in the assessment determine the budget. Answers in the assessment are given to determine eligibility for services, not to determine how big the budget can be or will be. Funds may not be carried over from year to year. Budgets are not reduced in the following year if unspent funds are left over. It is important to remember that you should only use the amount of your budget you need to meet you or the participant's needs. At the beginning of the plan year, you should carefully plan what your needs or the participant's needs are. Leftover money in the budget should not be thought of as a savings account that must be spent by the end of the plan year. If you have planned well and there have been no significant changes, the plan developed in the beginning of the plan year should suffice. Your county case manager will provide required case management. This is not part of your CDCS budget. Your case manager will work with you to determine eligibility, services, information about resources, and they will evaluate and monitor your CDCS plan. It is important to remember that CDCS is a self-directed program. Most of the work with this type of self-directed program will fall on the participant or the responsible party of the plan. Support planning is a big job that requires detailed information about you, your person, hopes, dreams, planned supports, goals, goods and services devised to meet individual needs through the CDCS services option. You can write the plan yourself and be your own support planner, but it is a lot of work. When a person or families choose to write their own plan, it creates an unnecessary higher amount of stress. Sometimes it is just easier to hire a support planner. They are experts in writing plans and are familiar with DHS and Blue Earth County CDCS guidelines. What if I don't want to hire a support planner? You are required to use the DHS provided state form. You will need access to a computer. This form should be typewritten. Your case manager can email you the link to this form. The form must be completed fully and accurately. If you choose to write your own plan, your case manager will not be available to help you develop and revise your plan. CDCS is a self-directed program, and this will be an assumed duty or responsibility on your part. Use this website in blue below to find a support planner. Once you are in the website, you will complete a search for support planner. The search will return a topic of support broker services. Open this topic for a complete list of state certified support planners. It will then be your responsibility to interview, make phone calls, and decide which support planner you would like to use. The Fiscal Management Service is the agency that brokers the funding or the money. The FMS manages the budget amount, reimburses you when you turn in receipts from the approved items you have purchased from your plan, and then bills down from your state allocated budget for their reimbursement. The Fiscal Management Service offers financial management services to persons or participants who have chosen the CDCS service option. FMSs must enroll as an MA or a medical assistance provider with the state of Minnesota. FMSs play a big role in assisting clients with the use of the CDCS program. What does an FMS do? FMSs process and pay vendor and agency invoices for goods and services. They bill DHS for CDCS payment. They may manage state and federal employment taxes and payroll for your support. FMSs maintain records and track all expenditures. They provide clients with monthly summaries of expenditures. FMSs establish and make public rates for services, as well as conduct background studies on all direct support staff. The FMSs track all spending for you. They manage their payroll, depending on the services you choose. They send all reports to clients and case managers. It is your responsibility to keep track of your budget, how much has been spent, and only purchase approved items on your plan. In a sense, the FMS is the bank. They hold the waiver money needed to meet the needs of yourself or the participant. They reimburse you for approved services and goods that you have purchased for yourself or the participant. To find a fiscal management entity, please go to the listed website. Search Fiscal Management Services. The search will return a topic of participant-directed financial management organizations. Open this topic for a complete list of fiscal management services. You will then find a list of fiscal management services that you can call and interview. It is your responsibility to choose which fiscal management service you would like to use. You get to choose the FMS of your choice. The FMS will help consumers or self-directed support services ensure payments of workers, vendors, and they comply with applicable state and federal laws. Blue Earth County does not endorse a particular FMS. Please know and understand that our CDCS review team makes decisions regarding approvals and denials based upon individual needs and state and federal guidelines. You are expected to know the CDCS rules and guidelines, which may change each year or several times a year. You may visit with others using CDCS in the community. Please remember, decisions are based upon individual need. An item may be approved for one person and denied for another. Again, approvals and denials are based upon individual needs and federal and state guidelines. Who can participate? Waiver and AC recipients who attend an orientation session, follow the terms of the participation agreement, which is found on page 9 of every CDCS plan, arrange their services and supports, select a fiscal management service, select a method for paying staff, submit necessary documentation as required to the FMS for payments and reimbursement, and pay fees as required. In order to be eligible for the CDCS program, a person must be eligible for one of the waivers. Other eligibility requirements include having medical assistance and having a need for services above and beyond what state plan services can provide. Eligible participants must have a record without convictions of fraud and cannot be on the restricted recipient program. Participants must not have an open child or adult protection case. CDCS is a flexible service option. Some services are only available through the CDCS service option. Services include paid parent of minors or spouses. Another benefit to using the CDCS option is that it does allow paying staff a more competitive wage. It allows for some alternative therapies as well as assists for paying for some special diets. For some services, CDCS requires additional documentation from physicians, occupational therapists, and/or physical therapists. CDCS is a self-directed program. Responsibility to managing this program falls to the participant or responsible party. Traditional licensed services are typically brokered by the case manager. Case managers find providers to work with the participant. For CDCS, the participant hires, trains, and directs their own staff. Traditional licensed services are billed through the state system, whereas CDCS services are billed and paid through the FMS. All waiver and home care services you have, including support staff, family, and other services that you choose. Other services you choose could include agency-provided PCA services, agency-provided in-home support, independent living services, day services, supported employment services, and allowable supplies and equipment not covered by straight medical assistance. It is important to remember that waiver is the payer of last resort. For some goods you would like to purchase, you may have to wait for the medical assistance denial. After MA denies, then the item can be purchased by the waiver. A reminder about nursing and home care aids. If these services are not paid by private insurance, they must be listed in the plan and come out of the plan year budget. How can this money be used? Expenditures must be consistent with the following parameters. They must be client-driven, health and safety must be considered, fiscal responsibility must be considered, and they must be a defensible use of taxpayer dollars. Let's dig a little deeper into each of these. What does it mean to be client-driven? It is any proposed expenditures directly related to the client's needs and priorities. Sometimes requests are made that are not related directly to the client, but indirectly. An example of this would be car repairs to get someone to their appointments. Waiver cannot fund this sort of request. It may be part of their care, but it is not directly related to that person's disability. Federally, we are mandated that all expenditures must relate directly to the person's disability. Health and safety considers all the planned health and safety needs of the client and that they are prioritized in the plan. All proposed expenditures need to support the client's health and safety and general well-being. We ask that you first assess for health and safety before you request for other things in the plan. Sometimes we will get a request for items to meet a sensory need for a child, but this child is a runner and there is no fence in the yard. We would probably recommend, because of health and safety for that child, that a fence get put into the yard first. That is just a small example of reprioritizing until you get all of the health and safety net pieces in place first. Expenditures must meet all county, state, and federal guidelines. This includes being for the direct and only benefit of the participant. They must be included in the CDCS plan. Expenditures must be necessary to meet one of the participants' assessed needs. Expenditures must be related to the participant's disability and/or condition. They must be necessary to ensure health and safety or to enable the person to function with greater independence. Expenditures should only cover goods and services that collectively represent a feasible alternative to institutional care. Fiscal responsibility means that proposed expenditures cannot be covered by other sources or those sources that have been exhausted. Other resource means like medical assistance, Social Security, or private insurance. Those resources must be used first before accessing CDCS dollars. CDCS dollars or waiver is always the funding of last resort. All other sources have to be considered first. Also, proposed expenditures must fall within a customary range for similar supports, goods, and services. And finally, the proposed expenditures are the least costly alternative that meets the needs of the individual. Think Chevy, not Cadillac. Just a reminder that items in the plan must be reasonable and cost efficient. The CDCS budget is an up to amount. This means you only spend what you need to meet the participant's needs. Defensible use of taxpayer dollars. This means that the proposed expenditures must be defensible to the taxpayer and the funding source. Essentially, we have two clients, Joe Public and our client that we are servicing through CDCS. If we have a state legislature who lives on the same block as a child and we just approved a large outdoor swing for a child with autism, we better be able to defend the reason that swing is related to the disability of that child. Another way to think about this is to remember, when you are building items into your plan for your person with a disability, it isn't the item that gets approved. It is how the item relates to the disability. There could be two children on the same block with disabilities, and both are requesting a large swing, and only one can really show that it is recommended by the therapist, the doctor, and that their issues are related to needing a type of therapy like sensory or core strengthening. The request for that child would probably be approved. If the other child has different challenges and those issues are not related to their disability, the request would probably be denied. Rule of thumb. This is just another way to look at the items you would like to purchase. A question to ask is this: would I have purchased this item, service, if my loved one did not have a disability or condition? If the answer is yes, it's not allowed. If the answer is no, it's usually allowed. If the answer is maybe, it's maybe allowed. Here are the links to what I call the DHS Community-Based Services Manual. This is a document you can't live without. You can do a search for CBSM DHS MN and it will come right up. From there, look into the table of contents labeled A through Z. Click on A through Z and scroll down to the letter C. There you will find all the links to the CDCS manual. Goods and services are allowable when they maintain the ability of the client to remain in the community, enhance community inclusion and family involvement, develop or maintain skills, decrease dependency on formal services, increase independence of the client, increase ability of unpaid family members and friends to receive training and education to provide support. Here are some examples of things that can go into your plan. Traditional goods and services provided by the waivers, as well as alternatives that support clients. Goods and services that augment state plan or medical assistance services. Goods and services that provide alternatives to state plan services. Therapies, special diets, and behavioral supports not available through state plan services when approved by a physician who is enrolled as a Minnesota medical assistance provider. There is a treatment form you will need to use called Alternative Treatment Form for MHCP-enrolled physicians. If you want to use a treatment such as music therapy, which is not approved by medical assistance, you would have to have your physician sign that form. We would need that signed form, and then the waiver can pay for that service through your CDCS plan and budget. This is a good example of something that medical assistance would not allow. This speaks to the flexibility of the CDCS program. Medical assistance would deny the service. Since waiver is payer of last resort, it would be approved to pay for this service out of the CDCS budget. Other examples of things you can have in your plan include expenses related to developing and implementing your community support plan. Costs incurred to manage the budget, things like hiring staff or paying your FMS their fees or FICA and taxes for staff. Also, fitness and exercise programs for adults only. When these are accompanied by recommendations from the doctor and are directly related to a long-term goal listed in your plan. What are the 4 areas of expenditure categories under the CDCS program? They include personal assistance, treatment and training, environmental modifications and provisions, self-direction support activities. What is personal assistance? Personal assistance means all your formal and informal supports for personal care and relief of primary caregivers. This can include staff who perform personal care work, staff who relieve primary caregivers, payment of parents of a minor, or payment of spouse. ADLs, or activities of daily living, include things that you do every day like dressing, grooming, bathing, eating, and getting around. IADLs, this is mainly for adults, include other things that you do not necessarily do on a daily basis, but things that do need to get done. This may include shopping, meal planning, home management, finances, communication, and participation in the community. Personal support is used by many parents as a way to be paid for assisting your loved ones with tasks that go above and beyond what parents of similar age children without disabilities would normally do. The same is true for spouses. Spouses can only be paid for the time spent doing things above and beyond a typical spousal responsibility. In order to be eligible for paid parental or spousal support, the person with a disability has to have at least one ADL dependency on the MinChoices assessment. Are there special rules for parents of minors and spouses who pay themselves? Yes. Parents means biological, adoptive, and step parents of children under the age of 18. For the child that's a minor, the child must have at least one dependency identified through a MinChoices assessment or reassessment in the areas of activities of daily living for the parent to be paid. For a spouse, the adult must have at least one dependency identified through a MinChoices assessment or reassessment in the area of activities of daily living for the spouse to be paid. More on paying parent of a minor or a spouse. The support provided must be described in the personal assistance category of the plan. Parents can only be paid for time spent doing things that are above and beyond what parents of similar age children without disabilities would normally do. Spouses can only be paid for time spent doing things above and beyond typical spousal responsibility. For example, parents diapering a 2-year-old wouldn't qualify. Parents diapering a 12-year-old would. The same is true for an adult. If you're shaving your spouse, that is typically something that a person would do for themselves, and it is above and beyond typical spousal responsibility. A list of tasks to be done by the parent for the minor and a simple weekly schedule is required on the CSP under Support Staff Paid Parent of Minor. Parents and spouses must keep timesheets. Parents and spouses must include a simple work schedule and tasks in the plan, number of hours worked per week, and the things or tasks to be completed. Variations must be requested and approved. Parents in combination, regardless of the number of children and the number of households, cannot be paid more than 40 hours per 7 days. You may have one parent paid all 40 hours for 2 or 3 children with disabilities in the home, or you could split the payment up, so 10 hours for one parent and 30 for the other, or even do 20-20. It doesn't matter as long as it does not go over the 40 hours. Neither one of them can go over the combined 40 hours in 7 days. You must keep track and review your monthly expenditures. This is your responsibility to ensure you are not overspending your allotted annual budget amount. Your case manager must do at least quarterly reviews of expenditures as well. When using the flexible program of CDCS to be paid as a parent of a minor or a spouse, this is a real job. You are being paid for assisting your loved one in activities of daily living, in instrumental activities of daily living, and/or you are teaching them new skills. In other words, you are being paid to provide a waiver service. Are there any other considerations when paying parents of minors or spouses? Yes, it could have an effect on your relationship with your loved one. An increased income may mean an increase in parental fees. An increase in income taxes and a change in eligibility for other program assistance could also be affected. If you're using a Section 8 housing voucher and your income goes up, it is going to change the cost of your rent and you could see an increase. It is important to make an informed choice prior to accessing the CDCS program option. Medical Assistance Home Care Services. This category includes licensed services provided by a home care agency, including personal care attendants, skilled nursing, home health aide, and private duty nursing. The service must be listed separately and billed directly to DHS or the managed care entity, if applicable, by the home care agency. These services are not billed through the fiscal management services, but these licensed services must be billed through the state system and paid out of your CDCS budget. Private duty and skilled nursing. State plan home care services are provided by a licensed certified agency. State set rates used and deducted from the CDCS budget separate service agreements entered into MMIS. Extended private duty nursing or skilled nursing visits comes directly out of the CDCS budget through the Fiscal Support Management Service. If your private insurance is providing any of these services, the hours you are receiving should be written into your CDCS plan. There are some considerations to look at when hiring individuals to provide support. The client is responsible for recruiting, selecting, training, and identifying tasks to be done, and also they're responsible for following the state laws regarding FICA, workers' comp, unemployment, and tax withholding. Agencies with choice are available to assist in this area. People hired by clients are not employees of Blue Earth County. Blue Earth County is not responsible for their actions or performance. A job description for staff must be included in the plan. It can be written within the plan or added on as an addendum. The job description must list the specific job duties that are allowed only under the personal assistance or skill building areas of the plan. Paid parent of a minor or paid spouse can only be paid for personal assistance activities. These include activities of daily living, independent activities of daily living, behavior redirection, and supervision above and beyond what is necessary for a person without a disabling condition. A criminal background study is now required by state legislation for anyone who is in direct contact with an individual with a disability. This includes all direct care staff and all workers who are not providing services under a company. Typically, companies who provide these services are responsible for best practices, certification, and licensing. Treatment and training is the formal and informal supports and services for specialized health care, extended therapies, habilitation, or in other words, skill building, caregiver, consumer training, and day services. Skill building includes learning a new skill, improving a skill, or relearning a skill, and that can occur in the following areas: self-care, communication, interpersonal skills, home and community living, sensory and motor development, challenging behaviors to reduce and eliminate those behaviors, and mobility. More on treatment and training. Some support services require licenses. These services include nursing, occupational therapy, and physical therapy. Environmental modifications and provisions include the items or things you need to support the plan, the needs of the client, and items needed for training. Assistive technology, home and vehicle modifications, supplies and equipment, adaptive clothing, special diets, environmental supports. Other examples include under what is allowable under this section of the plan, and they can include cell phone, computer, fence, an adapted bathroom, special diets, and disability-related care supplies that are not covered by medical assistance, non-educational supplies related to training, therapy, and behavior programs. Cell phone is emergency use only. If you wouldn't have one unless the plan paid for it, you may be eligible for a cell phone. Check the Blue Earth County expenditure guide provided in your packet for allowable items and limits. Mileage is allowable under this section for transportation needed to get to support services which support learning the goals in the plan. Mileage is not allowable for getting to medical appointments. Straight medical assistance can pay for trips to medical appointments. Parents are never allowed to claim and be reimbursed for mileage. For vehicle modifications, home modifications, or other big item necessities that fall under this category, for the CAC, CADI, BI, and DD waiver, the first $5,000 must come out of the CDCS budget. Amounts beyond $5,000 can be requested from county administered waiver pool. Elderly waiver does have an equipment limit of $10,000 per plan year. This is the last part of the plan. It is where you put all the expenses related to running the plan. Fiscal management services are included, as well as workers' comp, liability insurance, payroll expenses, employer share of benefits, recruiting costs, and the support planner. You can also use this part of the plan to purchase applications that assist you in looking for staff. These items are all included under the self-direction portion of the plan. What are my responsibilities? You need to sign a participation agreement, which is a commitment to follow the program rules and procedures. This agreement is included in every CDCS plan. It is a good idea to read it once a year. You must follow the CDCS policy, employment and labor laws. You are a mandated reporter and you must follow the reporting rules. Please keep track of your expenses, follow your plan, and only purchase items which have been approved in your plan. Notify your case manager of any changes. You need to sign a participation agreement, which is a commitment to follow the program rules and procedures. This agreement is included in every CDCS support plan. It is a good idea to read it once a year. You must follow the CDCS policy, employment and labor laws. You are a mandated reporter and you must follow those reporting rules. Please keep track of your expenses, follow your plan, and only purchase items which has been approved in your plan. Notify your case manager of any changes. The participation agreement reads as follows. I understand that participating in Consumer-Directed Community Support Services, CDCS, means I have the authority and flexibility to plan and spend funds within my allocated budget and according to the Minnesota Department of Human Services policies. I also understand and agree to my responsibilities as stated below. Parent of minor, spouse, pay responsibilities. I will not work more hours than are approved in my plan. Parents of minors or spouses may not work more than 40 hours per week. I understand that income earned for being a support worker may affect my eligibility for other income-based assistance programs. I understand that I must develop a job description and work schedule if I am being paid as a parent of minor or spouse. More participant responsibilities included in the participation agreement. I am responsible to develop an annual CDCS community support plan using a person-centered planning process that is focused on my needs, preferences, talents, abilities, choices, and vision for my future. Involved me and or my parent if I am a minor child or guardian and other people who are important to me. Is built on my capacity to participate in activities that promote community life. Risks that pose harm to me have been identified, assessed, and were addressed in the plan. I have assured all supports, services, and goods purchased through this plan are necessary due to my disability. I have assured all supports, services, and goods purchased through this plan are the least costly and effective means to meet my needs. I am responsible for submitting the annual CDCS Community Support Plan on time and by the due date designated by the assigned case manager or care coordinator to avoid a lapse of services. I am responsible to decide who will arrange for the supports and items identified in my plan. I understand I can only purchase supports and items identified in my approved plan. I understand my budget can only be spent in the time period stated in my plan, and expenditures cannot exceed the approved amount. More participant responsibilities included in the participation agreement. I am responsible to arrange for the timely payment of all approved services, supports, and goods. I understand that I am responsible for expenditures that are not approved in my plan. The lead agency will not be responsible for such expenditures. I understand that I am responsible for expenditures that are in excess of the expenditures approved in my plan. The lead agency will not be responsible for such expenditures. I understand that as a condition of being on a waiver program or the alternative care program, I, the waiver participant, must participate in an annual face-to-face reassessment. I understand my case manager or care coordinator must have a minimum of 2 face-to-face visits with me within a 12-month period. I understand that the annually approved plan remains in effect unless and until the lead agency approves any requested changes. I understand that no changes or revisions can be made to the CDCS Community Support Plan and/or the CDCS budget during the last 30 days of the plan year, unless approved by the assigned case manager or care coordinator for reasons of critical health and safety. I assume full responsibility for my choices of people to provide unlicensed support. I understand that they are not employees of the lead agency, and I will not hold the lead agency and/or its employees responsible for any act or omission on the part of the person providing unlicensed supports. I understand that I must notify my case manager or care coordinator whenever I, the person using CDCS, am hospitalized or enter a nursing home or mental health facility. I understand that CDCS services may not be billed and will not be reimbursed during that time. More participant responsibilities included in the participation agreement. I understand that I am responsible for maintaining my eligibility for the program, medical assistance, waiver, or the alternative care program. I understand I must have documentation that verifies all supports provided and items purchased. Falsified documentation will result in termination of the CDCS option. I understand that if I do not adhere to the responsibilities identified in this participation agreement, one or more of the following actions may result. Recommended use of a support planner who will be paid by my CDCS budget. Return of funds not used according to program guidelines. Termination from CDCS and return to traditional services. Prosecution for medical fraud. What must my plan include? Your plan must also include a description of safeguards that are required to reasonably maintain the health and safety of the client. The plan must also include all of the people who will be responsible for assuring that all education and all training requirements are met. The person or persons responsible for monitoring the plan, and the plan for monitoring the services and supports in the plan, and the signatures of all responsible parties. Can you amend your plan? Yes, you can, but your plan, once it is approved, is considered in effect until proposed changes are submitted to your case manager. Changes should be limited to 1 time per quarter. We are a little bit more lenient with people who are on the plan their first year and still getting used to how it works. Once your plan is approved and sent to the FMS, it is the official plan. There are no other drafts out there except the approved county plan, stamped and signed by Blue Earth County. Changes can be made to your plan, but it must be amended and approved. Changes cannot be made within the last 30 days of the plan year unless necessary to ensure health and safety. More on plan changes or amendments. Moving funds from one category to another, for an example, from personal assistance to environmental modifications, would need an approval. Adding an item or service to the current plan needs an approval. Revising the pay and/or work schedule for a parent of minor or spouse must go through the approval process. Substituting an item costing more than $500 for a similar previously approved item must go through the approval if the budget amount changes. What can't CDCS pay for? Services covered by other sources like medical assistance, private insurance, and Social Security insurance. Service, goods, or supports provided to or benefiting persons other than the client. Room and board and personal items not related to the disability. Home modifications that add square footage, except for some situations related to adding square footage to bathrooms. Another home modification that is not allowable is modification to places other than the primary residence. This is important to remember. Some things that aren't approvable might make good sense, but they are just an absolute no. An example would be pets. Even if they are an emotional companion, those are not negotiable. We have to follow those federal laws which deny the option to purchase some items. Other items that CDCS can't pay for include lodging, meals, and travel related to conferences and workshops. Although it can pay for the conference or the workshop, but none of the other related expenses previously mentioned. It can't pay for home-based schooling or educational products. Education is in the arena of your school district, and they are responsible for educational costs. If you are going to be homeschooling, that curriculum needs to be yours or stipends that you get from the school district you are living in. CDCS or waiver funds cannot pay for any membership dues or costs except for fitness and exercise programs for adults, only with a physician's statement of support. CDCS cannot pay for vacation expenses or vehicle maintenance, except for adaptations to wheelchair lifts. They are approvable for getting repairs since they can tend to wear out from frequent use. The waiver cannot purchase tickets to anything. Pets, animals, and related costs, including service animals. Over-the-counter medications, dietary supplements, or anything considered experimental. CDCS cannot pay for prescriptions, including medical marijuana and compounds and solutions. Please refer to the CBSM allowable and unallowable document, as well as the Blue Earth County CDCS Guidelines Manual. Blue Earth County can terminate someone's use of CDCS. This is called an involuntary exit. Reasons for an involuntary exit include immediate health and safety concerns such as maltreatment of the consumer, purchases or practices not allowable under CDCS, suspected fraud or misuse of funds, receipt of 4 technical assistance notifications in one plan year. Expect to get a written technical assistance if any of the following occurs. Paid parent of minor and paid spouse are paid for more hours that they have been approved to work for. If time is put on the time card when the child was not there, in school for example, or at respite care, or if you are putting time on the time card when you were not providing a waiver service. You will receive a written technical assistance if you have overspent your budget or if you consistently underspend your budget. All overtime must be pre-approved or written in the plan, explicitly describing when overtime will be used. The same goes for bonuses. Written technical assistance will also occur if you do not get required paperwork turned in or if you choose not to pay your required spend down. The Minnesota Department of Human Services has asked Blue Earth County to remind participants that funding for CDCS is through medical assistance. Fraudulent use of even $1 of medical assistance funds is a felony. Suspected fraud is investigated by the state and may prevent future participation in consumer-directed services. The easiest way to commit fraud is to not stay aware of the hours your staff are saying they did and then signing the time card. You may be signing that they did hours that they didn't. Always keep track of actual staff hours, even if it is only on the kitchen calendar. Never give a staff a pre-signed, unfilled out time card. The following is very important to remember. Once your plan is approved, when you need to make a change, please contact your case manager for a change form. What isn't approved is if you make a change before you contact your case manager. There will be no after-the-fact approvals. No, oh, I bought it a month ago. It was on sale and I thought the county or lead agency would approve. No. We cannot go back and approve something that you have already purchased. You must contact your case manager when you want to make a change in your plan. Email is fine. Please fill out the change plan form as well and include all documentation, including what you want, a picture of what you want, the cost, how it is disability related, where you are taking the money from in your currently approved plan, and finally, who your contact is at your fiscal management service. So what happens next? Your case manager will let you know what your allocated budget is. Think about and research the costs of items which are necessary to meet your needs. Find a support planner. Choose a fiscal management service. Have your plan developed and get your plan to your case manager, who will pass the plan on to the Blue Earth County CDCS review team.